Chris, you can't just apply technology. I mean, it's clear that this platform business is you have to be tech savvy and tech ready, but you can't just throw tech at the problem. You need to create the right environment for those kinds of technology driven solutions to be fertile.
No, absolutely, Toby. And I think, when we think of technologies of today, they've got this immense transformational power. But deploying technology alone is not going to really be sufficient to generate any value. It needs to be coupled and really applied to solving real-world problems in business, in social and environmental areas. I think with the true business value being derived from services and business model innovation is where it lies. I think technology may not be the primary driver of value, but it's certainly a key amplifier which creates the scale and the network effect that Sangeet mentioned a little bit earlier. I think so when we think of platform organizations, they still need to develop their technological readiness and scalability, but really need to focus on a couple of key things. I think the first one is the data strategy and how does that ensure interoperability, both internally and externally. The second is this having an infrastructure that can scale. And lastly, the ability to manage your technology risk. So I think when we think about it, if we look at data, we all know data is said to be the oil of the platform economy, and it's one of the primary sources of value creation in a platform business. In most traditional organizations, data acquisition is almost incidental to the existing business processes that you follow, MR, data, etc. But at platform firms, they certainly, it needs to be a lot more strategically planned, determined by the business goals and led by business. I think this requires a cohesive data strategy and a structured roadmap deliberately to be implemented, which then can help unlock some of the business value in several ways. The creation of data-driven products and services, different types of business models, differentiating our offerings to our consumers, our producers and partners, creating and delivering a truly, personalized experience. And then, obviously, the analytics to generate the business insights, which then inform your strategy as you move along. I think organizations need to create this interoperability with other platforms and partners. And, Sangeet spoke a lot about this earlier. The use of this common open standard is so important to achieve this. APIs, crucial. From external APIs, but also just not forgetting your internal APIs and creating that interoperability internally across your systems. I think as platforms reach critical mass, they start to scale in a non-linear way, and your typical J curve. This needs an operating model and scalable infrastructure that's going to support that growth. This may be achieved, I think, by employing all these microservices-based architecture, which loosely couple some of the modularity, which enables us to target modifications to be made at scale without increasing the complexity of the overall system, which is so key. I think accessing cloud capability naturally can further enhance the platform scalability. So I think, lastly, if we just move back to the technology risk side, I think data privacy and cyber security are key to creating a trusted environment. Organizations need to clearly define and enforce a data security policy. I think this needs to be carefully balanced and trade-off between obviously achieving your business goals, but balancing it off against your privacy concerns as well. I think in open ecosystems, cybersecurity becomes increasingly challenging as you are dependent on so many participants in the ecosystem. So organizations need to set up the appropriate cybersecurity capabilities and defense to make sure that their data security and regulatory compliance is top of mind. I think from a cybersecurity should be part of a core part of your partner due diligence and must be reviewed ongoing and periodically through that relationship.
I mean, it's a very complex checklist of things you need to know. Who would have thought APIs, microservices, cybersecurity, these are phrases that didn't exist a little while ago. So, Andrew, we've heard from Chris about the importance of being tech ready and the environment for tech readiness, but it's just as important to understand the regulatory framework in Africa, isn't it?
Absolutely, Toby. I think if you look at our regulations across all the markets, one thing that you realize immediately is that these regulations were designed for an industrial era competitive environment and for command and control systems for each of the jurisdictions. They were never designed to create that seamless cross-border interaction between the jurisdictions. But I think as we continue to talk to the regulators, you also start understanding certain themes that are emerging. One, obviously, being data sovereignty. Every one of the regulators obsesses about owning and protecting their own data. They're also worried about consumer protection as one of the themes that are coming through quite strongly. And I mean, we continuously look at the region as one economic area, so we continue to engage the regulators about harmonization of regulations across the entire East Africa region. But there's clearly a need for us to continue to engage the regulators and continue to sell the benefits. More often than not, we engage our regulators in a more antagonistic way or responding to certain regulations, but we also need to engage them about growing the market and creating an environment where platform businesses can thrive. Thank you.
You had me at harmonizing the regulators.